You're watching What She Said on YouTube.
Welcome back to What She Said. I'm Christine Bentley in studio with a 15-year-old girl who is showing all of us, kids and adults alike, the way. So hello there, Rachel Parent.
Hi, thank you so much for having me here today.
Now, you are the founder of a very special organization. Why don't you tell our listeners about Kids' Right to Know?
Well, Kids' Right to Know was started when I was 12 years old. Originally, I found out a little bit about GMOs and how they were impacting our health and the environment, and immediately I knew I had to do something about this issue. So I started telling my peers about it, and the more I researched, the more concerned I became, and I realized, if nobody's going to do anything about this, why not me?
Well, before we go any further, Rachel, you do understand there are people out there who don't know what a GMO is.
Yes.
So why don't you tell us what exactly that is? Because we've kept it a secret.
All right, so a GMO is a genetically modified organism, and it's where they take DNA from one species and insert it into another to introduce a new trait. So, for instance, they could take a virus, bacteria, even a gene from an animal or another plant.
And what is the danger for you?
Well, there have been many studies that have proven that there are many risks associated with GMOs, both health and environmental. For health, there have been things like digestive disorders, organ damage, immune system problems, even allergies, and tumors. So huge issues. And for environment, for instance, there's the dying off of our bees and butterflies because of the use of GMOs and the pesticides that are used with GMOs. Then there's, for instance, superweeds and superbugs. What's happening with them is that because of these GMOs, more and more pesticides and herbicides are being used because the weeds and bugs are becoming resistant to the GMOs that are supposed to kill them. So, what's happening is because they're becoming more and more resistant, farmers are spraying more and more toxic pesticides right directly onto the plants and insects. And of course, it keeps going on, and bugs and weeds are becoming more and more resistant. So it's a huge issue. There's many, many superweeds now in Canada, and even soil erosion and water erosion because all these pesticides and herbicides are going into our soil and into our water, and we are drinking it too.
So basically you're saying it's the beginning of a food chain that then goes right up to the top. Now, what are some of the health traits that are associated with GMOs?
There's two main traits that are commercially used. So there's first, it's herbicide resistance. So you can spray thousands and thousands of pounds of herbicides onto these weeds or onto these crops, and it will not be killed. And then there's also insecticide directly in the plant, so it produces its own pesticide, so that when a bug eats it, its stomach will explode and it will die.
But for human beings, what are we seeing? What kind of effects are we seeing in our health? What is it affecting in our body?
We're seeing organ damage, digestive disorders, even things like allergies, and we've seen tumors as well. And this has been tested on rats, and they believe that it's also affecting humans.
What foods have GMOs? Because I think most people would be absolutely amazed at what they're eating.
Yeah, what most people don't know is that the main crops are corn, canola, soy, and cottonseed. So a lot of these are in the foods that we eat every day. Another GMO crop are Hawaiian papaya and yellow zucchini and squash. So we're seeing a lot of these foods in our everyday common processed foods. I mean, there's canola and there's corn and soy in almost everything.
So what percentage of our food, or what percentage of things that are on a normal grocery store shelf for any Canadian have GMOs in them?
About 70% of the processed food on our shelves contain genetically modified ingredients. So it's a huge percentage, and the issue is that most Canadians don't even know about it. I mean, I've talked to so many Canadians, and a lot of them don't know about GMOs, and once they find out about it, they're like, well, why don't we have labeling? And that's exactly what I'm trying to fight for, because I believe that we all have the right to know what's in our food.
So you can avoid it if you have labeling, but you're saying the labeling, the laws that we have in this country don't address that properly? Is that the issue?
There are no mandatory GMO labeling in Canada or the US, and in fact they are the only two industrialized nations in the world that don't require mandatory GMO labeling. As we stand, 64 countries around the world already have labeling, so why not us?
So what can we do about it? What, as Canadians, can we do about it? I mean, you're working your tail off to get that word out, so if we're also concerned, then what do we do?
Well, if you would like to help out with the cause, because it's an extremely important cause for all Canadians, what you need to do is create awareness. Tell everyone you know about GMOs and get the word out, because that's the most important thing. I mean, think about it. Most Canadians don't know what GMOs are. So once people find out what they are, they can finally demand what we all deserve, which is labeling. Another thing you can do is post on social media. And, I mean, you don't even have to be on TV or radio or magazines to make a difference. All you have to do is be passionate about it and do whatever you really can. For instance, you can send a letter to your local member of Parliament, or you can demand mandatory GMO labeling from your local supermarket. I mean, whatever it is that you believe will make a change will make a change.
Now, do you think this issue is a demographic issue? That is, do you think there are people of certain age groups that are more concerned than others? What have you noticed?
Well, I noticed that many kids are extremely concerned about GMOs. I mean, after all, it is our future. And we're going to have to grow up having these issues. I mean, no other generation had to deal with the bees dying off and the butterflies dying off. I mean, they're the main pollinators. They're responsible for 1 in 3 bites of food we eat every day. And other generations didn't have to deal with the fact that they didn't have to deal with knowing that their future is being ruined because of what they're eating. So I think many kids are extremely interested in GMOs because it's something that really touches their heart. I mean, everyone has to eat, so it's something that really sparks interest within the youth.
So, what are you currently doing? Your group is called Kids Right to Know.
Yeah.
What are you currently doing?
Well, currently we're creating awareness within Canada and the US.
In what way?
Well, we let people know. We're on social media. We do marches. We do petitions. Another one of our initiatives right now is that I'm actually meeting with the Minister of Health, Rona Ambrose. And so we'll be discussing how important it is for Canadians to have GMO labeling. That way we can all make our own informed decisions. And we have many projects going on like that. I speak at schools, and we really just want to create awareness so that people can demand non-GMO mandatory labeling.
So what do you say in response to people who say, well, you know, you're 15, you're not a doctor, you're not a scientist, I mean, you're throwing out all these facts. What do you really know about all this?
I understand I'm a kid, and I obviously don't have a university degree, and I'm not a scientist, and I haven't studied GMOs, and I haven't worked in a lab testing on rats, but I think it doesn't even matter anymore. I think if you're passionate about an issue, then you have to take a stand, and I'm passionate about this. I mean, it's affecting my future, and I'm going to stand up for my future. So that's exactly what I'm trying to do, and I think if everyone had a passion and they took action, what a wonderful world it would be. So I just hope that people find their passions, and hopefully more and more people will come and join our cause, because it's an extremely important cause affecting all of us.
Now, I understand that you come by this social conscience you have, this ability, compulsion to speak out about things that you think are right or wrong. You come by that naturally. You have that running in your family. Why don't you tell us who's your biggest influence there?
My biggest influence wasn't really anyone in our family. It was probably a scientist that I met a while back, Dr. Seralini. and he did a 2-year study on rats. And after seeing that, I freaked out because these rats had tumors. They had so many health issues, and I freaked out knowing that if it could happen to those rats, it could happen to me, and it could happen to all the rest of the kids. So I think that was my biggest influence. Another one is Vandana Shiva. She's been an amazing mentor for me. She's so inspiring, and she just creates awareness about food safety and agriculture, and she works in India very closely with the farmers there growing cotton. So she's amazing, and I think those have been my 2 biggest mentors.
And your grandmother.
Yes, my grandmother as well. She started creating awareness in the early 90s, and it never really spread on to me. I mean, I kind of just brushed it off. I heard her talking about it one morning during breakfast. She's like, your cereal might be GMO, and I'm like, who cares? It's food. But then school came around, and I had to do a speech, and I wanted to do it on some big issue. So I was looking into GMOs a little bit, and that's how I really got interested in it, because I noticed how it was really affecting us, and that's when I knew I had to do something.
So just out of curiosity, when you are all grown up, as if you aren't already, what would you like to do? What would you like to be?
I think I'm definitely looking into public speaking, journalism, and environmental law, because I feel like they would go really well with what I'm doing, especially in the fight to help our environment and people.
Well, Rachel, you are an inspiration to all of us. I'm going to start reading labels, and I'm going to start watching videos and getting myself educated on this, and I hope all our listeners across the country will do the same. You're setting a fine example, and we wish you all the success. So,
Click the channel subscribe button for full-length interviews and more from What She Said here on YouTube.